Hey everybody, this is Dust for Dust on Gaming with some playbacks of a deck that I played a little bit on stream, but did some more matches offline. This is Odoyo Rules Bedlam Skred. Just a reminder, if you like the channel, please consider subscribing. If you really like the channel and would consider supporting us, we have a Patreon page. The link is down below. Anyways, so this was Odoyo Rules deck. It was a take on traditional Skred deck with Bedlam Reveler in the main deck. The offset is you pretty much have to play your Graveyard Hate like Relic of Progenitus in the sideboard, and you have to play a few more spells in the main deck, so he opted for Molten Rain and Faithless Looting, which I think Faithless Looting is reasonable in the archetype. It's a little bit clunky because you have all these high drops, but it does help you filter, if you flood out, or if you have a bunch of cards you can't cast, having some number of Faithless Looting seemed pretty reasonable. Got Lightning Bolts and Skreds to answer early creatures along with Anger of the Gods. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what Skred is a Blood Moon based mono red control deck that uses snowlands to power up your Skred, which then turns into a basically Path to Exile, Fatal Push-esque removal spell mid to late game. Can kill pretty much anything that isn't indestructible or a huge Eldrazi late in the game. On the early in game, can answer most of the aggro rush creatures that could kill you as you're trying to set up. With the addition of Bedlam Reveler, gives you a card advantage engine in the late game, so playing things like Molten Rain, Skred, Lightning Bolt, Faithless Looting to get some number of sorceries in the graveyard, to get your Bedlam Reveler to a 4 and 5 drop, which is where most of this deck's power comes from. Cough of the Hammer basically turns your mountains into 4/4 attackers, can use it for a burst of mana, and then if you ultimate, which it ultimates after two turns, you plus it to 4, plus it to 5, ultimate on turn 3. All your mountains basically turn into 1-point damage spells. And then Chandra, Torch of Defiance. This has been a pretty good card in Standard. Hasn't really found too many homes in Modern, but it's pretty reasonable. It's one of the more powerful 4-drop Planeswalkers ever. Probably behind, I'd say maybe behind Jace is the second most powerful and versatile. Batter Skull, kind of giving you a little bit of life in some matchups. The Recursive Threat. Inferno Titan, there's no Stormbreath Dragons in this list, but Inferno Titan does a pretty good job cleaning up aggro rushes, also helps stabilize the board against some bigger threats, and obviously Bedlam Reveler can draw you into some gas. Sideboard, got Shattering Spree for artifact decks, got Goblin Rabble Master when you need to speed up your clock in some of the control and combo matchups, Anger of the Gods, additional sweeper against the graveyard, and aggro decks, Pithing Needle for when you need to shut down problematic Planeswalkers, Relic of Progenitus for all those wonderful graveyard-based decks, or when you just need a card to bring in when your Skreds and stuff are kind of dead, couple Dampening Spheres for things like Tron, Storm, etc. 3 Dragon's Claws, pretty much for the burn matchup, can also come in against something like Goblins. And then Ratchet Bomb is pretty reasonable against anything with 0, 1, or 2 drops that you need to get rid of, since your deck really lacks flexibility being a mono red control deck. So go into game history here. So this is the first match we played off camera. I believe this was a pseudo budget blue-red Delver-esque deck. So keep in mind this is tournament practice room, so not always the most scientific testing. But opening hand, got 3 lands, a Bolt, a Blood Moon into a Koth, and then presumably Inferno Titan if we can get there. Obviously a pretty reasonable keep. Potently on Mountain. We draw a Mind Stone, which helps us ramp. Opponent delete still plays nothing. I play Mind Stone here, simply because I don't want to get countered from anything. Opponent plays a Delver, which kind of tells us what they're up to here. So I play a Molten Rain kind of as a bait spell here. They let it resolve. Play a Bolt to kill their Delver. They play a... Is it Guildgate? We try to lead on Faithless Looting. Get rid of Blood Moon and a Cough of the Hammer, which may have been incorrect. But I really didn't feel like keeping too many expensive cards in our hand. They end up countering this with a Rune Snag. Pretty good indication they're on a budget list at this point. They're flooding out a little bit. We snap off our Mind Stone because we're getting to the point where we can basically cast anything. This is where these Faithless Lootings are kind of nice, allowing you to loot through your deck. Pitch a couple of lands here. Play a Mind Stone. We only have one true card that we really want to care about resolving, so we just continue to draw cards here, play a little bit of draw go. Opponent plays Spellheart Chimera, which is basically, I forget what the card's name. Basically, almost the same effect as a card we'll see later in the matchup, because I can't remember its name right now, but I know it's in this opponent's deck. We see a Skred, which is a nice card, allows us to kill pretty much anything. Opponent bolts us. We decide to Skred their thing during upkeep. They're probably playing a bunch of soft counters, so we have to start running our spells out because they have Bedlam Reveler here. Opponent hits it with a Syncopate. We Faithless Looting, fine. Anger of the Gods, and Blood Moon. Blood Moon's not really relevant here when they have this many lands, so we keep Mind Stone and Bedlam Reveler. Go ahead and run Mind Stone out, or I guess we flashback looting here, which may have been incorrect. Get rid of the 2 Mind Stones, hold on to removal spell. Find a Koth here. Go ahead and run out the Koth. Koth actually resolves, start getting in for some damage here. Opponent goes ahead and uses a Burst Lightning to kill the Koth. Continue to play draw go, try to run Bedlam Reveler. They dissolve it. Is it Charm? Digging for some cards. Enigma Drake, that's a card I could not think of. And obviously Enigma Drake can close out the game pretty quickly given the fact that they're 6/4s. We go ahead and kill the 1. We Molten Ray in their land. Take a hit, draw another Skred, kill their guy. Starting to flood out here. They play another Enigma Drake. We play out a Batterskull. Opponent bolts our face and then kills us with an Enigma Drake. Nope. Guess they don't quite kill us here, but it pretty much is. It's pretty much game here. We draw a bolt. So I bolt the Enigma Drake here. Opponent forces us to pay mana. Their Bedlam Reveler, they mana leak us. And we draw Faithless Looting, which doesn't do us any good, and then we're just dead here. So go ahead and scoop up the game. Game 2. Obviously, not a whole lot to bring in here. I brought in the relics, sideboarded out some of the Anger of the Gods because they aren't quite as good in this matchup. I think I brought in the relics and so this hand, Faithless Looting, or a couple lootings, a couple Bedlam Revelers, not ideal, as anyone who's played Modern Pyromancer would know. And Anger of the Gods, I left some number of those in. Let's see. So I boarded out the Blood Moons and an Anger of the God. Nope, I guess we left the Anger of the Gods all out. So I guess I just boarded out the Blood Moons for the Relics of Progenitus. Which makes sense, because their deck seemed pretty resilient to Blood Moon in Game 1, so really was no reason to leave it in. Get rid of a Faithless Looting, and I think a Bedlam Reveler here. Yeah, that made sense. Because we're not going to be able to cast both, most likely. Although, to be fair, our opponent does have a ton of counter magic, so continue processing Faithless Looting, get rid of the Anger of the Gods, and another Faithless Looting. Just trying to continue to set up here. Bedlam Reveler still costs us 5 mana. We don't run anything out into their open mana. Go ahead and run out this Dragon's Claw, because they are an aggro deck at heart. So getting a little bit of life helps. Go ahead and run out a Koth here. Runs into a mana leak. Plays a spell card Chimera. We draw a relic, which allows us to keep their creatures kind of in check here. So they have quite the board here, but we keep their creatures in check by the fact that they can't really just take the damage. Go to combat here. They all attack the Koth. Then they Into the Royal are relic, which means we couldn't activate to get rid of the Into the Royal. So 3 damage across the board here. They bolt our face, kill our Koth. We're able to replay the relics out, get their creatures back under control. No reason to run our other stuff into some soft counter magic. I guess I should have run out the... Did I run out the Battle Skull here? I think I run out the Battle Skull. So I run into Mana Leak, pay for that. And then they have another soft counter and Ruin Snag. So, kind of hard to play around all of their soft counters, but... Get rid of those. Getting the Skred kind of sucks, but we did want to get another thing into the graveyard for this Bedlam Reveler. Reveler draws us a bunch of stuff. Cast out a Ratchet Bomb. Start plussing the Ratchet Bomb, and then our opponent concedes, because everything they have is on 3. So, and they don't have too many ways to get this off the board, and they can't really kill us when 2 relics are kind of keeping their guys at bay. So, game 3, see if I changed any sideboarding here. Didn't realize the sideboarding thing actually worked now. No, it looks like I kept sideboarding the same, just boarded out the Blood Moons for the relics. Obviously, Relic's a little bit of a non-bow with Bedlam Reveler in your deck, but as long as you are using the activated ability and not the exiling ability, it's pretty reasonable. Sand's a little weird. We've got 2 4-drops, a 6-drop, and a relic. I think I end up mulliganing this. I end up keeping it. Our deck kind of bails us out with a Faithless Looting. Opponent doesn't flip their Delver. Opponent Mana Leaks a Faithless Looting because I didn't lead on to their land. Use the Relic to get rid of their thing here. Delver still won't flip. Gonna flash back the Faithless Looting. Get rid of the Looting and the Mind Stone. Which that's fine because we're gonna start potentially dropping bombs the following turn, especially since they play a Spellheart Chimera here. I think I run out... No, I run out Koth here, which I think I was playing around Spell Pierce, but might have been better off playing around getting the Anger of the Gods down here, especially since we... Opponent uses a Bolt and a Delver to get rid of their thing. Lead on Ratchet Bomb here. Straws out the Mana Leak. Play a land, clear up their guys with Anger of the Gods. Play out another. They play out an Enigma Drake here. We use Chandra to get rid of their dude. Plus Chandra. Faithless Looting, cast that, get rid of the Looting and a Mind Stone, play out Dragon's Claw, let's pass the turn. Opponent blows up the Relic, which is fine. Don't want to pop Relic given the fact that we do have opponent uses a Dissolve on our Koth, which is fine, because we're really hoping to resolve the Inferno Titan here. Opponent plays a Spellheart. We get another Dragon's Claw down off of Chandra. Run out the Koth. If they have a counterspell, great. If they don't, go ahead and start attacking them. Go ahead and plus for mana. So be able to play around some soft counters with this Inferno Titan. Titan resolves, and that's pretty much game, because their deck doesn't have too many ways to remove a 6 toughness guy. So, that was the first match we played. Let's see. So, I've been playing a lot of matches off camera, because I'm able to play like a match here or there, but I can't really stream for a long period of time. So I have a series of decks in the queue right now that I need to do these playthroughs for. I have Jeskai Miracles, another Burn League, Aetherworks Marvel, and the standard review for Bant Nexus. So if you guys like this format, let me know. If you don't, please let me know. But this enables me to create a lot more content and get a lot more games in without necessarily having the time to sit down and do like a hour and a half, 2 hour stream. So I'm still able to produce content over time while playing a little bit more on my own schedule. Like, I'm still gonna do the streams and stuff when I can. Like, actually, I'm gonna do a stream here shortly as soon as I do this, finish this replay. But this enables me to get more content out, test more decks, play a little more matches. So this hand's a bit of a risky keep. You have snow covered, you have a mountain, and a faithless looting. I think I end up throwing this one back. Nope, I end up keeping this one. Wow. Faithless looting keeps, man. They are risky. Pitch faithless looting and a lightning bolt. End up getting Inquisition here, losing our Blood Moon. We draw a land like a professional, get our Mind Stone out there. We go ahead and flashback Faithless Looting here. Find another land, have to get rid of Bolt. Opponent plays Opt, they play Wooded Cemetery. We go ahead and start jamming Koth here, start beating down. Opponent use a Maelstrom Pulse. Inquisition us take our Skred. Get another Skred. Flashback looting. Get rid of Anger of the Gods and Skred. Keep a land. So we're getting close to these Inferno Titans. Our opponent plays a Jace. We draw a land and start jamming Inferno Titans. Opponent plays a Dark Confidant. We start jamming with Inferno Titan. Jam our other Inferno Titan. Which may have been incorrect. They could have something like Damnation in their deck, so probably wasn't necessary to play the second Inferno Titan. So we're up against some type of Sultai deck. See how we sideboard here in a minute. So Sultai, I brought in, looks like I brought in the Rabble Masters and boarded out a Bolt. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it looks like I brought in 2 relics and 2 Rabble Masters for 3 copies of Anger of the Gods and a Lightning Bolt. So it looks like I was going a little more aggressive and disrupting any graveyard elements out of the Sultai deck with some relics. Saying once again is risky. Do I end up pitching this one? Yeah, I end up pitching that one. Seeing this hand, probably bottom the looting here, looking for a land drop. Getting Inquisition. They take our Blood Moon. Get a land. Opponent plays a Duress, takes our Skred. Use this with a handful of Lightning Bolts pretty much. Go ahead and get our Mind Stone rolling here. Opponent Thoughtseize is our Bedlam Reveler. So we've been triple discard spelled. They Maelstrom Pulse our Mind Stone, which they did the wrong one. If they would have did this one, they would have gotten us pretty good. We'll get to Cantrip here, find a Relic of Progenitus. So one thing to consider when playing these mid-range decks, you need pressure in addition to your disruption. Like, our opponent triple discard spelled us and hit us with a Maelstrom Pulse, but they have no pressure in play, so get rid of Bolt and a Relic here. Gonna run out the Relic. And it runs out Tarmogoyf, which is fine. We draw Chandra. Flashback Faithless Looting. Our opponent mana leaks it. Start getting hit by this Goyf. Opponent Ops. Where's that? Dark Confidant. Bolt Confidant. Draw land. Pop. Play the Chandra out. Pop the Relic. Kill their Goyf. Now we're kind of at a standstill here. We have an active Planeswalker. They don't. We play a Koth. They hit it with a Counter Squall here? Nope, Syncopate. What's with the Syncopates out of these decks in the practice rooms? Can't play the Bedlam Reveler out here. Play a Koth. One has you another Syncopate. Can pay for it this time. We start beating down with lands. And then Planeswalkers pretty much finish off the game. And I believe we have one more match. Guess we'll find out in a second. Because I know I did a Just Guy League after that night, so I want to get into that. Yep. One more. This hand's reasonable. I mean, we've got a couple of Faithless Lootings, a Bedlam Reveler, and a Koth. Pretty reasonable hand, though we don't have any early interaction. I don't play Faithless Looting yet, because I have no idea what I'm digging for. Well, it plays out Burning Inquiry, so we lose Anger of the Gods and Bedlam Reveler. Go ahead and cast the Faithless Looting now. Looks like our opponent, this is Uptala, indicates that our opponent is on the Chromanta Flare, not the Chromanta Flare, the Soul Flare deck with Zeptala and some stuff. Faithless Looting pitches a Koth and another Faithless Looting. So, opponent is Grixis Colors. Faithless Looting. I think we're going to get Hollow One here if I remember correctly. Yep. Get a Hollow One. They have a Flamewake Phoenix in their graveyard. Flashback Faithless Looting. Discard a Titan and a Koth. Because I'm not really going to be able to protect the Planeswalker. Pressure. Flashback Faithless Looting here. At this point we have Triple Bolt in our hand, which starts to give us another game plan if they shock themselves anymore. Double Street Race Cycle. Hit us for 6 here. Play out a Mind Stone. So, Burning Inquiry at this point, I just fire off all the bolts, kind of hope we either draw another bolt or hold on to this Inferno Titan. Spoiler alert, they just brutality us and then kill us with the guys. So, we're up against a hybrid Hollow One Soul Flare deck, which deck is pretty sweet. I don't know how consistent it actually is, but the few times I've seen it, it's like a pretty sweet deck. There's a couple different builds of it. Our opponent's on the Grixis build with the Hexproof, Skittering, whatever the heck it is. So deck I'll probably play at some point just because it's fun. So sideboarding, I boarded out one copy of Anger of the Gods, one Bedlam Reveler, brought in the 3 relics, and I guess I left in the Blood Moons. So what did I board out? I boarded out an Anger of the Gods, a Bedlam Reveler, and I guess I went with a 61 card special. This hand, even though it's got a relic, just simply isn't good enough. We have no red sources, so fortunately it's a mulligan. This hand isn't great, but we've got a couple lands, a Faithless Looting. So, see a Skred on top. I believe we end up keeping that. Opponent with a fast start here. So, opponent with Street Wraith and the Faithless Looting. Guess we did bottom the Skred, which is interesting. but I guess Skred doesn't really answer their creatures all that well. So our opponent had turn 1 Hollow 1, which is already pretty rough for Skred's removal to handle. Now we're going to get hit with a Soul Flare. So Soul Flare basically gets, for each keyword on creatures in the graveyard, it gets that. So right now with a Zeptala in the graveyard, it's going to get Flying, Double Strike, Vigilance, Trample, Indestructible. And then Gifted Aetherborn is going to give it Death Touch and Lifelink. So, Death Touch, Double Strike, Flying, Indestructible, Lifelink, Trample, and Vigilance on turn 2. You know, fair stuff. So, I'm going to get hit for 4 here. At this point, we're already pretty much drawing dead, because we can't really beat an indestructible creature, because we don't have Path to Exile or like an Edict effect in our deck. So, Soul Flare when it does its thing, and then you add it on to a Hollow 1 shell. That can be pretty explosive. Adds a different element of dimension in a delve threat. I think one thing I'd like to see out of these like Hollow 1 Soul Flare decks is like some number of Unburial Rites to play with like Zeptala and stuff. Because Zeptala on its own is just like a beating of a card. So maybe someday we'll have to experiment with like an Unburial Rites, Soul Flare, Hollow 1 deck. But for right now, this was the wrap up on Bedlam Skred. Like I said, this is a user-submitted deck list by Odolo Rules. We played it for like a match on stream against Ad Nauseam. And then we've played a couple matches here against a couple practice room things, and then against Hollow 1 Soul Flare. So the issue with Skred in the current meta is the same issue that a lot of mid-range decks have. Mid-range decks kind of beat up on each other quite well, but the format's kind of devolved into a humans, Bant Spirits, the Hardened Scales Affinity, Blue-White Control, Tron, Burn. A lot of matchups that are on polar opposites of the format. You either have the aggressive disruption decks, or you have the fast combo decks, or you have the Blue-White X and Tron decks. Those are all kind of bad for the these mid-range disruption decks. And Skred is already kind of limited by the fact that it's heavily reliant on Blood Moon, and the mono red thing kind of holds you back in terms of like the removal you can run, kind of holds you back in terms of like your sideboard options. You're pretty much limited to red cards and artifacts. So it's kind of caught in this no man's land between it's not really fast and it's not really disruptive in a lot of elements. Basically, if your Blood Moons, your Molten Rains, or your Relics of Progenitus, for those versions running them in the main, if those elements aren't good, then your clock isn't usually fast enough to disrupt what's going on. That's part of the reason decks like Skred have kind of fallen off right now. Even the quote-unquote better mid-range decks like Mardu Pyromancer have kind of struggled in recent weeks. I mean, they put up some results in really good pilot's hands, but they're really like struggling to churn through their deck. I like the moving forward of Faithless Looting. I think Bedlam Reveler in some number gives you some ability to churn through your deck more, which is a problem for this mono red base control deck. Inferno Titan, I mean, obviously, like, a lot of what was going on was pretty positive. The one of 2 points I would make about the deck is, I think, given how the format's shaped up and how the power level difference between Koth and Chandra, I really think you want a third copy of Chandra over the fourth Koth, because Koth is good at being a closer, providing mana, and obviously its ultimate's insane, but Chandra is just the better card. Chandra can defend herself with her -4 or -3. Koth really can't defend himself that well, so you're really reliant on your Skreds, your Bolts, your Angers to having cleared the board. So I think a 3-3 split here. The sideboard's pretty reasonable for what you got going on. Maybe another copy of Ratchet Bomb for some matchups, depends on your meta. Pithing Needle, obviously kind of a necessary evil against Planeswalkers, because you can't really pressure Planeswalkers all that well. especially before like turn 4 or 5. Mind Stone obviously pretty key. I mean, a lot of the card selection for the deck is pretty reasonable. I think maybe like 2 or 3 Bedlams would be correct. I'm not sure what you'd replace them with. But I think 4 might be too many. And then Molten Rain obviously is a concession to the fact that you're playing Bedlam Reveler. Really wish there was like another like instant somewhere in this area that was better at disrupting your opponent. You know, maybe like a copy or 2 of Dismember or a copy of Roast or something to deal with slightly bigger creatures, which can be a problem, especially since you have the relics in the sideboard since you're playing the Bedlam Revelers. But overall, I like the list. Skred's fun as a change of pace, but it's not very good in the meta right now. Unless you're, like O'Doyle said in his, like, kind of rundown of the deck, and when he was talking about it in chat, that his meta is very mid-rangey, and Skred is a fairly decent deck in the mid-range fights. So, but that's the wrap-up for our playthroughs. You know, we had played 3 more matches with the deck. I wanted to get this out here because I know some of you guys were really looking forward to this deck. So, here's the playthroughs. As I've said, coming up, I've got some Jeskai Miracles, some Burn, some Bane Approach for Standard, and Aetherworks Marvel playthroughs. Most of those were leagues, I believe, so there'll be a lot of content coming in the coming days. Last 2 days I've had school, so I couldn't really put out these videos, even though I've been sitting on the actual matches themselves. And I gotta get ready for the green-black aggressive deck standard send-off video. So, a lot of stuff coming on, a lot of stuff going out. Obviously, the spoilers for Return to Ravnica are pretty much, or the new Ravnica set are pretty much done. So, new standard rotation will be coming. I've got the RPTQ to start getting ready for in December, which is modern. There's a testing team that's starting to form some local players, so I'll be filling in here and there on information on that if anybody's interested. So, but that's a lot of what's going on. So, a lot of stuff going on. Time's a little bit limited because I'm in school and working full-time right now, so I'm trying to crank out as much as I can, so I appreciate your guys' support, appreciate your guys' patience. Like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. This has been Dusk on Gaming, a little bit more of Bedlam Skred from O'Doyle Rules.